Hi there! You're about to listen to a vintage episode of the Under the Microscope podcast. While the content is still as relevant and as interesting as when it was recorded, our webpage has changed. You can now find us at thesciencetalk.com/real-scientist-nano. Welcome to Under the Microscope. This series is brought to you by the Real Scientists Nano team. Our goal is to provide a platform where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, every week we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials and nanoscience, who would be curating the RealSci_Nano Twitter account.
Hi everyone, today we have with us Robert Karsthof, who is a Postdoctoral Research Fellow at the University of Oslo in Norway. Hi Robert, how are you?
Hi Pranoti, I'm fine. And you?
I'm good. I want to know more about your research and your experiments and everything. So let's start with talking about your scientific journey. So how did you end up as a postdoc now in Norway? Tell us everything.
So I would probably have to start back in my studying days. So I studied physics in Germany, in Leipzig. It's a beautiful, vibrant city in the eastern part of Germany, not very far from Berlin. Huge student community there, a lot of young people, a lot of interesting, cool stuff going on, concerts and clubs and everything that one can wish for under normal circumstances, not pandemic ones, of course. So I studied physics in my bachelor's and in my master's. And I got into touch with semiconductor physics quite early on. So I did my bachelor's thesis on defects in semiconductors. And then the nice thing about semiconductor physics is that you really have such a huge, it's a huge field, right? So you have so many different aspects and so many different devices. You can go into theory, you can do solar cells and LEDs, and you can really, it's a really versatile material class, and so is the amount of devices that you can work on. And then in my master's, I became interested in solar cells, so I could go into industry and do my master's thesis there. I had a really nice 1.5 years in industry working with CIGS, copper, indium, gallium diselenide solar cells. Really interesting time, but I also realized I want to do more basic research, and then went back to uni for my PhD, which I then did on transparent active devices, so mainly solar cells, and a couple of others. It was a long time. I took 5.5 years for my PhD, and then I finished in 2018, and just wrapped up a few things that were still open, some papers to be written, and then I decided it was time to move on, and found a really nice position here in Oslo, which is a postdoctoral research fellow is what it's called. So I'm a full-time researcher, so I don't do any teaching. I do full research. So the position here is also on defects. So I work with the functionalization of defects in semiconductors under different aspects. And I have a lot of freedom here, so I can really choose my focus really well. So that's really nice about my current position. And it looks like I'm going to be here for another year or year and a half. So that's my current status.
Quite an exciting journey you had from, first of all, Leipzig to Oslo, geographically, and also with the solar cells, with industry, and it's really cool. So you did speak a little bit about your current research in the short podcast, but what you're doing right now with the vacancies and the functionalization with the semiconductors, where does it fit in this big picture of materials and nanoscience? Where does it fit? Do you do like fabrication? Do you go more the application, the characterization? So where does it fit in this big puzzle?
So my most of my current work is actually more, so our group has a slogan, and that is something like application-driven or application-motivated fundamental research. So we are actually a group that does a lot of computational stuff. So we have several PhDs and postdocs who work with computational modeling of semiconductors, but also this always happens under the aspect of making devices in the end. High power electronics, LEDs, solar cells. Solar cells are a big thing here in Norway. Norway is really trying to look for a way out of oil, and solar cell technologies are one very serious candidate for how Norway can be important also once this oil thing stops working out. Solar cells is really big. And then my work is mainly fundamental characterization of these materials. So I don't make the devices myself, at least not the sophisticated devices in their end state. I'm looking at the materials, and the techniques that we use really look at the properties of these defects at the atomic level, right? So defects are something that always lives at an atomic scale. So you have atoms missing, atoms swapped, moving around, and then these electrons that are trapped there in a very confined space. So everything is nano. And then the methods that we use really are capable of finding these defects on a nanoscale, and then finding out what their properties are and how we can manipulate them, and all these things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's really also nice to know where does it fit in real life. With the solar cells, are we trying to go towards green? And also your logo, no, not logo, sorry, your slogan. Totally, I understand it now. What was it? Application-driven fundamental research.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. Okay, super. That it sounds like you are involved in a lot of interesting projects. I mean, even now, and hopefully you can show us one when you're taking over the account. And you have been involved in a lot of interesting projects in the past as well, including your master thesis at the industry, your PhD work. So what I'm getting at is could be a difficult question. It's a difficult one for me, but if you have to pick one research project that you're most proud of, or the most fun or quirky one, I know it's tough, but could you pick one for us and explain it to us in simple words in the section we call In Other Words?
Yes, of course. So there's actually one that I can come up with. So I mentioned this phase that I had in Leipzig after my thesis was done. So one of the materials I worked with a lot during my PhD is a nickel oxide, so the oxide of the metal nickel, which is really versatile, which I will be talking about in the upcoming week. But it's also a very challenging material in a lot of senses. So to understand its properties is something that people have been looking at for decades, but in a lot of cases not really figured out yet. And one of the central questions that people look at in semiconductors is the so-called electronic transport. So how do electrons in a material move from A to B, basically? And there's a surprising number of processes that actually can move an electron from A to B. It can be quite a lot of different ways. And in nickel oxide, the literature that I could find when I was writing my thesis was not really conclusive at all. So there was a lot of different models being used, and they would also contradict each other in parts. And then the models they would use were maybe just would work in certain temperature ranges and then not in others. And I was really, really unhappy with this. And after I finished up, I decided, okay, I want to do a project. I want to do a study on this. And this was the first project that I more or less did on my own without my supervisor being involved. And I found so I made an experiment and realized that the equipment that we had was not quite what I needed. And I found a group, actually by coincidence, located in the same building, so same university. And there was a professor there who had world-class equipment for what I wanted to do. And then I talked to him, and he was really excited about it and offered me that I could use it and we could talk about it and then make a collaboration. And that's what this developed into. So we ended up doing a lot of really interesting, but also very challenging experiments and discussing a lot. And what was fun about this was actually that I learned, because they were not solid state physicists, so they were not dealing with matter in the crystal or like in a solid matter, but they were soft matter physics. So they were more looking at polymers and maybe also biomatter and stuff like that. And I realized we were really using different language. So in the beginning, it was very difficult to talk to them, because we kept using different terms, and then also being a little, not really happy with the way the other person put it. But in the end, we really figured out that we were actually talking about the same stuff, and that you could learn a lot by just swapping language and try to adapt models that people in the other community would use, and then learn something new about your system. That was really, really fun. And yeah, so the collaboration ended up producing 2 really nice papers. One of them was even selected as editor's suggestion, I think was that, and that was really rewarding. And yeah, also what I now find extra rewarding about this is that, so this has been 2 years now, and by now several people have read the work and also tested our hypothesis on their samples. So it turns out that we were actually right, and that it works even beyond what we suggested it for. So that is really really rewarding.
That is really cool. Yeah, I was about to ask you. So, did you manage to answer the questions that were confusing you at the beginning of your work, and you did
yes,
for other people as well? So that is really cool. I can understand why you picked this project as the one that you're most proud of. Nothing against other projects. I'm sure you love them all equally. But this
there's differences. I mean, we all have our favorites, right? And then you also end up picking more projects than you can take on, and then at some point you realize, okay, this is more fun, so I'm going to do this.
This project will give me more of me, so let me focus on that. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's clear that you love the science aspect or the research aspect of being a scientist. Other than that, other than the research itself, what else do you like about, or what else do you love about your life as a scientist?
That's a very difficult question, I have to say. So there's a lot I like about it, but I think one of them was already part of my previous answer, is the collaborative aspect. So when I when I came back recently from a long period of home office, and I came back to the office, and people were here, and I was able to talk to them again, and then I realized, okay, this is actually what I missed most. Talking to others about their research. And also at some point you just realize, okay, I have a certain degree of experience now, and talking to others, maybe even others that have even more experience, you will generate input, and this really brings everyone forward. And I really like how, at least in the environment I'm working in now, I mean, this is probably not everywhere, but I really like that about the academic environment, that you have this cross, so you really have the opportunity to make interdisciplinary work happen, and then talk to other people about their research, and generate ideas, and that's what I really like about being a scientist, I think.
I think you're a very good scientist if you love collaborations and communication and everything, because I think that's very, very important as a scientist, especially in the field of nanoscience and technology, especially today, because there is so much happening. So it's always good to collaborate, and so much fun to collaborate.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Fun.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Awesome. So, what advice would you give Okay, there's two ways you can answer it, whichever way you want. What advice would you give yourself if you were to go back in the past and start out? Or what advice would you want to give to scientists who are starting out their research journey today? Do you have some advices that you have gathered in the long, long science career you have had so far?
Yeah, I think the one that I would tell both myself and probably others too is that you shouldn't be afraid of talking to people with more experience and asking them for help. It's really, there's nothing wrong in asking for help, and also most of the people that you will talk to will be more than happy to help you, because finding out that someone is interested in what you do is normally a really rewarding experience and will just make people happy and happy to help you. So don't try to solve problems on your own. If you feel that you're stuck, go find someone that you can talk to and really, make them. Yeah, exactly. You will maybe just get your answer, but you will also maybe have the opportunity for a nice collaboration, and of course, then double success.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds that your research experience so far, Robert, has been wonderful, and I hope it will stay to be wonderful, and even more better and better it gets every day. However, if you had 3 wishes to improve your research experience, what would you ask for? And I'm not promising anything.
Yeah, I thought a lot about this. So one of the things that is really, I think, bothering probably most of us is the difficult perspective of getting a long-term job, right? So if you like lab work, like I do, and if you like doing experiments, then there's probably only very few places in the world where you can really find a job and then just be sure that this is what you can do. All or most of the positions that we find in research in academia are fixed term, so we always have to live from project to project, from contract to contract, and never can be sure what will be in 3 years or in 10 years. And even if you aim for becoming a professor one day, it's definitely not sure that you will. So this is probably the hardest thing I can ask for. But this would definitely be on top of my list, and probably also at this point the only thing I can mention, because this is something that's really bothering me. And I've also recently realized how much this plays into mental health. So if you are on a fixed term position and you're really just you got a position and you have maybe 1.5 years or so, you pretty much have to start looking for the next one more or less immediately. And at some point you realize, you don't sleep well at night, and all you're thinking about is this, and then your mood is not the best. And this really, and then once the situation is settled and you maybe have the next contract, and you're really just you're free for a while, and all of a sudden you're on top of the world. And then really, it's just make me realize that this is probably what in the long term may be driving me out of academia, because this is not a permanent solution. Of course, it's not healthy. So please.
I wish I could just say that, hey, you have it tomorrow, Robert. When you get up, you will have a permanent contract, research position only, whatever you want, do that. But I really hope that it is happening. I mean, I can completely understand that it plays. It's really heavy on your mental health as well, and you can't really do science as freely and as nicely as you would, because you are always thinking, oh shit,
right,
1 year later my contract is going to end. I need to either apply for research funding, or I need to move to a different country, different continent, whatever. So it's
I mean, this it takes up energy, and really also the amount of potential that we lose in this is incredible. I mean, if people wouldn't have to look for funding, but would just be able to do the research, we would actually be able to have knowledge that is really in place, and we know, okay, there's this person who can do this technique, and they know what they're doing, and I can come to them. But at some point, they might leave, right? So their contract might end, and then they leave, and then there's no one else, or maybe even if there's someone who takes up that position, they will not have the same know-how. So we lose so much knowledge, so much potential by just keeping this very unhealthy system. So yeah, it's something that has to change. For me personally, I think a better coffee machine in this office space would probably, so the coffee here is terrible, but don't tell anyone. No, I mean, they all know. But no, I think apart from that, I'm really happy. I also have to acknowledge that, of course, I'm very privileged to be able to do work in a country with high social security and good salary and all these things. So that's how it is.
Coffee machine. Coffee machine and Robert is happy, and a lot of time in the clean room, and then Robert is happy. Well, I hope you get better coffee and a good coffee machine. This has been lovely talking to you about your research and about you as a scientist. Before we let you go, though, one last question that I have to ask. In this unexpectedly unprecedented year that we have lived, 2020, we have all learned a few things, unlearned a few things. Would you like to share some of your learnings from 2020?
Also, again, very difficult. I think I still haven't quite figured it out. So we're still in the middle of I think of the worst that Norway has ever seen right now. So I'm still adjusting, and so I think maybe what I have learned from this so far, it might sound a bit cheesy maybe, but once this is all over, I think I'll have a different appreciation for things that I can do. So really enjoy stuff that is possible while it is possible. Meet friends as often as possible, and exactly. So I mean, I'm kind of lucky here. Norway is also a place with so much nature where you can just go and not meet people. So of course, for some, this is also very, very helpful to overcome these challenges. But yeah, I think being able to meet people again, and this is something that I really, really look forward to, and that I will probably have a different appreciation for afterwards.
Okay, yeah, it does sound cheesy, but it is absolutely relatable. So thank you for sharing your learnings from 2020. Robert, this has been wonderful. Looking forward to having you on Real Scientist Nano. Thank you.
It has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. To know more about us, please visit our website, realscientistsnano.org, and follow us on Twitter at realsci_nano.